All right, welcome everybody. Nice to see everyone. A lot of you again and again and again. So thank you for being here. Want to kick off first by saying thank you. So this event is sponsored by Lake Street Advisors, which is a group down in Portsmouth, and Buddy Webb, who's on the advisory board of the ECenter. So just want to thank them. Thank you to Pam, who's out in the hallway, for helping facilitate and coordinate a lot of logistics for this. So thank you, Pam, for that. So a lot of you know that a lot of what we do is about idea creation, right? We had the idea creation bootcamp earlier. A lot of you did the mammoth 3-day startup this past weekend, right? So a lot of that is about identification of problems, coming up with solutions, testing those, and potentially launching a product or service. But there's another side to the coin for what opportunities are to be your own boss, still be an entrepreneur, but maybe take a little bit of the risk out. So in 7 years, this is actually the first time we've done a panel that talks about franchise. It's actually a very successful model throughout the world. And so the thought was for you to understand and hear the journeys, the ups, the downs, the path, how do you start it, everything that you probably want to know about franchise. So first of all, I want to appreciate to Eric, Anna, and Matt for being here. It's not very often we actually get to have the product for people who are speakers, so enjoy the subs and the cookies. I rarely take food first, but I did take the berry cookies because they're really good. So the format's going to be each of the panelists is going to do a quick overview about their business, some visuals to help sort of level set so you understand what the business is. Eric's going to talk a little bit about his role and what he has done. And then be a conversation really about franchising, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. And then, as we always do at the end, we have some raffles, some really good stuff, extra swag today. I see some Crumble t-shirts, so even more than you normally get. So with that, Eric Seitz is going to be the moderator tonight, and we'll head right. Oh, actually, sorry, 2 more things. I'll do this at the end as well. 2 more events coming up for us. So in a couple weekends is the Ideathon. We've partnered with Seacoast Science Center. That process is you either come as a team or come and be put on a team, spend about an hour here, hear about 3 problems that Seacoast Science Center is having. On your team, you'll go off, you come up with some solutions, come up with a presentation, come back Saturday morning and pitch it. And there's $2,500 of cash prizes for that. In addition, there's Red Bull, food, all sorts of everything else you need to get you through the night. And that following Monday is our last regular event, and that's going to be a pitch boot camp. So UH alum from LA is coming in, Alita, who's Emmy Award-winning newscaster, currently works with Hollywood celebrities and athletes in LA to help them perfect their own pitch and conversations for interviews and things like that. So highly encourage you to register for that as well. So with that, we're going to turn it over for the first overview, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ian. And again, thanks to Pam for organizing everything tonight. I'm Eric Seitz with Franchise Business Review. We're located in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I'm going to put a quick plug out that we're always looking for interns, so if you're interested later, come see me. And I'm sure a lot of these guys are probably looking for interns as well, or helpers, so keep that in mind. Quick show of hands, how many of you are business majors? About roughly half or so. I am a UNH alum. I was a plant biology major. Took a lot of photography classes while I was here, left college, went into commercial photography for a number of years, worked in marketing for a number of years before starting my own business. So, had a very crooked path to owning the business that I own today, which isn't a franchise. I started it 17 years ago. But we do franchise satisfaction research, which is a really weird niche. It's again, crooked path to get there. But what we do is we help franchise companies understand how they're doing supporting their franchise owners. And franchisees are very busy people. You can imagine they're running their own business. Those are the people that own the local franchise locations. And we're lucky enough to have 3 of them in the room tonight. So I want this to be an interactive session. Pick their brains as much as possible. You can ask me about my business and what we do. But just for a quick kind of background, does anybody want to kind of define what franchising is? And there's no right or wrong answer, but anybody that has a pretty good understanding of what franchising is?
It's basically operating under a brand's name, resources, and like the structure they built in a new location that you build and run from.
Exactly. Yeah, it's basically a licensing model. So some company has a business. A lot of people know the food businesses, but there's hundreds of different industries that franchise, thousands of different franchise companies in the United States. And they license their business to individual owners that are called franchisees that operate local stores. So these guys own their businesses. They don't own the brand, but their local business they own and operate, and they have the right to, a territory that they're operating for some period of time, depending on the franchisor. And the franchisor, the corporate entity, provides them with marketing and training and support and all of that. And then they pay a little bit of a fee back to the corporate office to keep that all going. So we'll hear a lot about that from them. I'm going to have each of them kind of give their own intro and a little background about their brand, and then we'll have a little coffee chat. And again, interactive as much as possible. So I've got questions to ask them, but I'd rather hear what questions you guys have too. So just keep that in mind. And Matt, we'll lead off with
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Eric. All right. First of all, thank you, Ian and Pam, for setting this up. It's nice to be back on campus. When I was a student here from 93 to 97, I know you probably weren't born then, but this little area right here was the Green Apartments. Eric, you might recall. Yep. It was kind of like, has anybody been to summer camp? It was like little, cabins, if you will. So this is quite an upgrade. It's great to be back on campus. And, not to sound old, but I wish we were doing this stuff when I was in school. Who's familiar with Jersey Mike's? You just ate it. So, but prior to that, is people starting to recognize the brand? It's been around since, actually, I'll get into that in a second. Let me start with my path to franchising. But so, as I mentioned, I graduated in 97. I actually interned for a company called Direct Capital in 1996. It was a finance company. I was a business major. Really unsure what I wanted to do after graduation, but I knew I wanted to be in business. Admittedly, I had no idea what that meant, but I wanted to be in business. So I took a job at a startup company based out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And one of the owners was a fraternity brother at the fraternity I was in. He had since graduated, and when they were getting off the ground, I think they started in like 95 or something. He came to the fraternity house and we were stuffing envelopes. And before I knew it, I needed a job. I interned there and actually did an internship. I got some credits for it, which was nice. I got paid. They offered me a job after graduation, and I was kind of focused on this idea that I was going to go to Europe with a buddy and backpack. And they're like, we really need you. And I thought about it and talked to my parents, and they're like, yeah, you should do it. So I had a week off after graduation, stepped into this company, and we took off. I was one of the top salespeople for a long time. In 2023, I was promoted to vice president, and I sort of did a lot of business development. So we as a company, it was a small ticket finance company, so we did a lot of equipment leasing, equipment financing, small ticket stuff. So between $2,000 and $50,000, $100,000 was our sweet spot. one of the guys on our team, and we're a small company, less than 100 people, coincidentally stumbled upon Subway. The irony here of Jersey Mike's franchisee, but this is when Subway back in the 90s was really taking off, and they were opening them on every corner. And to open a Subway wasn't a lot of money, and this guy hitched his wagon to Subway and was just doing a lot of business. So I said, I got to get in the game. My brother-in-law now, back then I just started, I was not even married, but my wife's sister's husband worked for Monster. Everybody heard of Monster.com? Now it's a has-been company, but at the time he was a kind of a big deal over there. I got the listings for a lot of the executive team for a bunch of franchises. So we sort of launched our franchise finance, and over the next couple of years, my focus became heavily into franchise. So Direct Capital got acquired in 2014 by a company called CIT, a publicly traded bank. I know, has anybody heard of CIT? There was just a big merger with First Citizens. They actually just flying a plane around Portsmouth yesterday. They've already hit $1 billion in sales already this year. So huge trajectory from Direct Capital to where they are today. When we got acquired in 2014, I was sort of recruited by the people at CIT to launch a mid-ticket franchise finance group, which was senior secured financing, so bigger deals. Our minimum deal was about $2 million, and we'd go up to like $35 million. So something I always wanted to do, because I'd lose my customers after like $500,000. So from 2015 to 2019, I was taking people like myself from 1 to say 10, 20, 50 stores. And I got, a front row seat at the best brands in the country, the blue chip brands, the Wendy's, Burger Kings. We wouldn't do anything regionally, even like a 99. It was all, blue chip stuff. So I tried Jersey Mike's, one of the preeminent accounting firms that handled franchising. I did a lot of Domino's work in this particular company called The Bottom Line, play on words there, accounting firm that just does franchise. Marnie, she's the owner, she's got about 300 employees, just did Domino's, and then a lot of people left Domino's and got into Jersey Mike's, and she kept saying, Matt, you should look at Jersey Mike's, and there were none in New England. I didn't know about it. I went to a conference in Vegas called the Restaurant Finance Development Conference. I tried the product. I was hooked. So anytime I was on the road, I'd seek out Jersey Mike's. I started following them, and in 2019, I took the leap of faith and signed a development agreement. It was great till COVID hit, right? And then, I was telling Eric, I was sitting in a parking lot looking at a site when the NCAA canceled the basketball tournament. I didn't have a site. This was in March. I had signed my development agreement in November, and everything was on hold. But anyway, for those of you who are just getting familiar with Jersey Mike's, it's been around since 1956. There's currently 2,300 locations. Jersey Mike's is built on slicing, fresh meat, making your bread, slicing onions, lettuce, tomatoes daily. So what you're eating today was made just a little bit ago. The onions, tomatoes, lettuce, all sliced this morning, bread made today. So that's the Jersey Mike's.
Did you make those, by the way?
I did. I was in there making subs today, but I did not make these. I had to go home and shower at 2, so that the team made these. But I did have a sub today. I had a hot sub though, not a cold one. These are some of the recent, accolades of what the brand has achieved over the last couple of years. Again, I dealt with a lot of the premium brands, and I'm super proud of this brand, not only for some of these accolades. One that I like is the number 4 on the Entrepreneur's Top 500 list. So the Franchise 500 list is all franchises. Handyman could be in there, Ace Hardware, Surf Pro. It's not just food. And we've been in the top 10 the last few years. This year at number 4. But these are just some of the accolades. We've got some recent technology awards. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the sort of the turnaround of Domino's when Patrick Doyle came in 2008. But that, I'm sure UNH business classes are probably do or should do a case study on Domino's. Before Patrick came over and revitalized Domino's, a lot of execs left to go to Jersey Mike's. Hoyt Jones, who's our president, and a lot of franchisees left. Part of Domino's revival was the technology boom, coming out with the app, the pizza tracker. And I think, Jersey Mike's kind of went to school on the importance of technology, so that's a cool one. I'm not going to speak to all of these, but some pretty cool things on here. This is another piece of the brand that really drew me to Jersey Mike's. It's very philanthropic. So when my wife and I were when I broke it to her that I was going to start making subs for a living, I had to educate her on the culture and I think the brand really resonates with our family and connecting with communities and giving back. Has anybody heard of the month of giving or seen that? Peter Cancro, the month of March is the month of giving. Anybody familiar with that? The day of giving is March 31st. So in years past, the brand can pick any charity they want and raise awareness and money for a charity of their choice. This year, the brand got behind Special Olympics, and collectively across the country raised $20 million for Special Olympics. So just feels good to go to work, give back. And we do a lot of fundraisers. Like this past weekend, we did one for breast cancer where we had our Londonderry store from 4 to 7. We gave 10% of the proceeds, and the group that put it on their Facebook page to drive awareness to our shop. And we gave 10%, basically our profit, to wrote a nice check for them. And that's pretty regular things that we do. It's sort of a win-win. People try our product, hopefully we get customers, and we're able to give back to a cause. So that's it. I'm looking forward to answering some questions from you guys, but thanks again for having me, and that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for all coming. Thank you for the invite, and wherever Pam made it, I do appreciate that. So my name's Eric Chason. I am the owner of My Handyman. I am not a handyman. I just own the business. My wife and partner is hiding in the back room. I got the nomination to come speak to y'all, so you get to hear from me. Anybody seen the red vans around? Anybody? Big red vans? Hopefully they didn't cut you off or anything like that. No? Good. That's a good thing. My business is a little bit different. It's a service-based business, so we're out there fixing problems. My tagline is, we turn your honey-do list into a honey-done list. So is anybody in the room handy? Okay, we'll leave it at that. Give us a call. No, when you need to. Let's see if we do this right. So, no, that's not good. I never claimed to be a good technical person, but it looks good, I hope. So who is My Handyman? Well, we're part of a nationwide franchise. There's about 180 owners out there just in the Mr. Handyman franchise. I'll get to the my part later on. We have about 18 other brands in our parent company called Neighborly. Those include the other Misters. We have Mr. Appliance, who is our appliance repair. Mr. Rooter is the plumber. Mr. Electric is the electric. And then we got a bunch of others that all focus on home services in and around homes and or businesses. We happen to cover quite a few aspects because we do a lot of the plumbing work, we do the electrical work, we do some appliance repair. But we do advertise that we work from the curb to the roof. So when somebody runs over your mailbox, they usually call us up. Can you come and fix it? Can you put it back up? Absolutely, we can do that. Our main specialty is small jobs. So it's something that usually happens in between a couple hours to 2 days. And our model is no one else wants to do small jobs because you don't make any money on it. Well, keep them believing that. So, so why do we buy? And that's the age-old question. Why would you do that? Why don't you just? It's a handyman service. Couldn't you figure this out on your own? Well, I said earlier. I mean, to myself, it's like playing a baseball game. I don't need to be that big guy that wears 77 for the Yankees or 99 or whatever is hitting all these home runs. I'm on third base. I just got to get home. All the work's been done for me. I'm surrounded by many other successful owners, whether they've been in it for a year, 6 months, 18 years. We have some 20-year owners that are in the system, many resales in the business. So I have countless number of owner-operators that I can call up and say, hey, I had this happening. How would you handle it? And I can pretty much get an answer from any of them. Oh, yeah, we've done that. Oh, yeah, we've done that. Or don't do this or don't do that. But I always wanted to own my own business. But honestly, I didn't have the courage. I learned the difference between confidence, which is something I do have, and courage. I didn't have the courage to do it. I wanted it, but I really didn't want to do it. But I couldn't find it. Everybody was opening jams and jellies. I won't date myself too bad in here. The green buildings, I do remember the green buildings. I also remember a company called Lollipop Tree. They didn't sell lollipops, but anyhow, everybody had something out there. They were making jams, they were making jellies. And for me, I was always a day late and $1 short, arriving at the wrong place. Company out there called When's Pig Sly Bakery. They've been making bread for many years too. But what I did do is something that you guys are all quite familiar. So yes, I'm a graduate from the University of New Hampshire in 1996, proud graduate. Unfortunately, the school I was accepted to no longer exists, but anyhow, it was renamed by somebody else. So I started school in 91, finished in 96, decided to have a hiccup in there. So as Matt said, I'm a pretty open person. I had to grow up. So I took a year off and decided what I was actually going to do with my life. And then I stayed and worked in a little store in town as a meat cutter. I was cutting meat at the little Hannaford store that's in town. And upon graduating, I was asked, would you like a job? I was like, well, I just spent all this money on school. I need to pay these student loans back. So yes, we're going to do that. But what I didn't know is I was going to stick around that little place and work for a long period of time. I worked for an entrepreneur who taught me, I thought courage. Taught me confidence, though. Taught me how to change and become a very daring person. We tried stuff every single week, and most of you probably don't know the store in town was independently owned up till about a decade ago. It transferred into a larger store, great company. Hannaford's been operating there for a while. They do certainly a good job in that location as well, but it's not what it was. But I had experience and I knew how to operate a business. I left that one, went to another one, and similar to Matt, I also helped grow that company. And I kept trying to find something. What can I do? And I just couldn't find it. And one day I was asked, have you ever considered franchising through a career coach? Because I was at the point saying, I don't like what I'm doing for work anymore. Matter of fact, I'm pretty miserable at this. And at that point, I remember my wife saying to me, I'm going to write your letter of resignation and you're going to go on. Well, what are we going to do, honey? Not this. So at that point, I worked with a career coach, and they kind of explained to me the world of franchising. They said, you have everything. I'm like, yeah, but I don't have those kind of funds. So that $1 million question, what kind of funds are we talking about? They're different. I was looking at a franchise that was roasting peanuts in the mall. Probably not a good franchise right now because the mall in Portsmouth is no more. So, and then we looked at several others. But I came across this handyman franchise. I'm like, boy, everybody always needs something fixed. Something always breaks. I mean, I just replaced my refrigerator at the house, and the next thing you know, the gas range broke down. It's like there's always going to be a need for people to do that. So I had my perfect partner, my wife. Thank you, honey. I appreciate it. We did the best thing in the world. Although this wasn't really the case, I was sharing with some of the other panel. I dragged my wife down to Waco, Texas, and she said, no. And then she told me 5 minutes, go in. She didn't see the potential of the research that I did with what we could do. And 5 minutes into it, she said, yes. And I was like, oh my goodness. Finally, I arrived. I'm able to do the one thing that I wanted to do, own my own business. And I get to do it and support my family. But we certainly feel blessed to have this opportunity to serve all of our clients, including all the sororities, any fraternities. Here, we love coming to fix the stuff in your places as well. Give us a call. That is a sales pitch. So, what a lot of people don't know, Mr. Handyman, why we mind, was started in Chelmsford, Mass. back in 1996 by a gentleman named David Laval. Why are we called My Handyman? Well, some other guy here in New Hampshire, he's called Mr. Handyman of New Hampshire, and he's an electrician. I don't want to call himself Mr. Electrician, but I guess Handyman said it sounded better. So the first one opened up here in 2004. Danielle and I are the third owners. So we purchased the business from another individual who successfully operated it for, I think, a decade or so. The next person decided to sell a little bit early. But we are the only franchise here in New Hampshire, but unfortunately we can't be trademarked as Mr. Handyman. So everything that I wear, all my apparel, it all looks the same. If you go to another state, it all says Mr. Handyman on that. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Anna Stice. My husband and I, we own the Crumble in Newington in Portsmouth, and we are currently working on opening a store in Rochester. We just barely began construction. We're really excited about that. So this is what our store looks like, and cookies. So my husband's right here. He is my partner. We actually have two other partners as well, but we are the operating partners of this store, which means that I'm the manager. I'm in the store every day. I am intricately involved in everything that happens in our day-to-day operations. So my husband, Ben, he kind of manages payroll, all the back end office things that happen. And I'm in the store working with our crew, training, interviewing, ordering, scheduling, making sure that our product is exactly what it's supposed to be. So my background, I did not work in a business or actually graduate from UNH. I went to a school called Brigham Young University out in Utah, where Ben and I met. I have a bachelor's degree in political science and Russian, which has nothing to do with business. When I graduated, I looked around and I had thought I'd go to law school or grad school. And my husband still had a year left at school. So I was like, well, what am I going to do with Russian and political science? So I went to work for Fidelity. I was a securities trader. I sold stock and mutual funds. And then I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. I have 4 children. My youngest, you might have seen him, my 2 back there, he is 4. And so for the past, 5 years, I've been thinking, what am I going to do when my kids are all in school? I couldn't do anything with my major originally, and I have no licenses left from Fidelity. They all lapsed. So my securities license, they're gone. And I didn't love that either. So for a long time, Ben and I were just kind of trying to decide what we were going to do. While I was a stay-at-home mom, I had kind of my own bakery out of my home. I'd sell cookies and cakes and cupcakes. And I love to bake. I love to make people happy with food. Cookies make people really happy. And so we talked about it. Crumble started in Utah, and we had moved out east before it had started. One day, my brother-in-law, Ben's brother, texted us and he said, hey, what would you guys think about opening a Crumble in New England? And we were like, I don't know, maybe. So we did a lot of research. Ben and I were like, we have no business background at all, zero, right? You saw Russian, political science. I didn't know anything. I didn't go to anything like this ever. I was gonna go in the Foreign Service. So this is totally new for me. Ben's brother, however, he has a very successful software engineering business that's been around for about 5-6 years. And so he kind of knows the ins and outs of running a business. And then our other partner is a venture capitalist, and he owns a part in multiple Crumbles in other parts of the country, in Sonic and some other franchises. And he just is a very good businessman, very savvy. And so we thought, well, if we have two partners who know what they're doing and a franchise, which if it's successful, they know what they're doing and they provide training, they provide marketing. It's like a training wheels for a business, right? If you don't know what you're doing, they can help you learn how to do it. So that's one reason why we chose Crumble. Another reason why is when we moved out here to the East Coast, Ben and I love dessert. Like I said, I'm a baker. And Utah, they do desserts really well. There are a lot of bakeries, there are a lot of sweet shops, they have soda shops, there are all kinds of things. And we moved out here and we were like, where's the dessert? There is nothing. So we thought, we need to bring more desserts out here. Crumble's an innovative concept where you go in and there are cookies and you just order your cookies, but they're fresh. We bake our cookies every day. We use the very best ingredients possible. You can see our mixers mixing right there in these huge 60-quart mixers. Is a really cool experience. We love the product. Like I said, it's high quality. We order the very best ingredients and we have to stick to that. Crumble has a very high standard and we have to have all of our ingredients approved. We can't just go out and say, well, this butter's cheaper, so let's buy that. We can't do that. It has to be the highest quality chocolate. It has to be the very best because that comes through when you eat a cookie. And the other thing we really liked, and this is something you should always consider whenever you're getting into a business, are the hours. So Crumble's hours are very different from other bakeries. Sometimes you go into a bakery and they close like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Crumble, we are open from 8 in the morning until 10 at night on the weekdays. We're open until 12 on the weekends, which means all those people who need a snack at 11:30 at night, they can come into our store. And at first you think that's crazy. Who would want to be open that late? But it's significant. We actually have a lot of people who end up coming in, and that's a significant part of our revenue. We also aren't open on Sundays, which for us was an important factor. We wanted one day where our kids knew we weren't going to do anything Crumble related, where we just are with our kids all the time. Not everyone appreciates that. A lot of people say, well, Sunday, that's crazy. That's such an important day to make money. For us, the trade-off is we get time with our families and our crew gets time with their families. So that was something that was really important to us. So why is Crumble so successful? The first store opened in Logan, Utah in 2017. So Logan is this tiny town in Utah. It's only on the map because of Utah State University. So there's two cousins who said, we are going to create the best cookie in the world. They went through probably hundreds of batches of dough. Then they would take their cookies to college students and they would say, hey, which one do you like better? Why do you like it better? So they would just go through all the things about a cookie, like, do you like milk chocolate chip better or semi-sweet better? And so our chocolate chip cookie is the original version that was approved by those college students. So it just started with a chocolate chip cookie and a sugar cookie, and then it expanded. So when we opened in December, we were number 300 and something. I don't remember which. Now there are over 600 stores open all over the US. The other thing that's really cool about Crumble, if you've been in our store, is that we always have that chocolate chip cookie. We always have a sugar, but then every week we have 4 new cookies. And there are more than 200 cookies that will be included on this menu. So they take inspiration from pies, from classic desserts. We have theme weeks. So there was like an island week where we had pineapple Dole Whip and coconut, and they'll do, like last week was Breast Cancer Awareness Week, so all the cookies were pink. So that's kind of exciting, and they leverage social media. So every Sunday, they do this social media blast where they're like, hey, here are our cookies. They'll email people, they'll text people. It's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, it's on TikTok. Here are the cookies we have. And so there's a really big following across many social media platforms where people see, oh, this is what it is. And so, you know, you might have seen Crumble on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, because a lot of people will post about it where they're like, oh, I got to taste the cookies this week. And there's a lot of FOMO. You think, if I don't taste them, I'm never going to know what it tastes like because there are 200 flavors. It might not come back for 6 months. So that's been a really big part of the success of Crumble. And that's actually what kind of drew us in at first, because the first store in New England that opened was down in Methuen in Massachusetts. And we lived about 20 minutes away. And Ben every week would be like, Anna, we have to go try the cookies. And I was like, Ben, we got to stop trying the cookies. Ended up that we now own our own cookie store, and we're going to open another one. So the other reason why Crumble has been so successful is that they have an in-house tech team. Like, it's a really new company, and so they are really good at leveraging technology, which means that they have like software engineers. So all of the software we use in-house, they have designed it. They have built it around the needs of Crumble. So we have apps for when you come in and you can click in your app on your phone, I'm here, and we're already making your cookie order and getting it ready to go. We have our recipes that we can just pull up and we can see how many batches we need. We have an app on my phone where I can look at any given time and see exactly how many cookies we've sold today or this week or this year. And I know what my labor cost is. I know how many people I have working, which is really cool. I can message anyone at corporate, like we have a success coach, if we have issues getting an ingredient or we are having issues with our recipes. There are people I can message right now and I can say, hey, our cookies are baking weird. We don't know what to do. Maybe it's a storm, and they will respond. They have people ready to respond who are in the test kitchen who can say, oh, maybe it's this, try this, which is really, really helpful as a franchise owner. Like, we don't feel like we're on our own all the time. We feel like they're in it with us, and they're actually very responsive to us. Like, if we have feedback where we're like, hey guys, like today, for example, we have a cookie and it just keeps spreading. And just before we started, I was messaging and saying, hey, something's going on with this cookie. What do you want us to do? And they were responding, and Ben's probably been going back and forth with them right now because they have that capability, which is really cool. And I don't have an experience with other franchises, but I really appreciate that as far as marketing, they're constantly trying to do new marketing things to help us be more successful, get more people in our store, get the word out that we're here. And it's really fun. It's a fun new product. It's not as time tested as Jersey Mike's or Mr. Handyman, but it's doing really well and it's going places. And I think that's it. So one thing though, before I finish, Ben has a shirt. What do you think, how many cookies do you think we've sold since we opened in December? Anyone have any guesses as to how many we've sold?
Since December?
Since December.
I'm going to answer if I could.
Go for it.
Panelists eligible.
I'm going to go with 850,000.
Oh my God.
That's a little high. I like the way you think though. That's good. Not quite that many. Any other?
I have a guess. Can I subtract my daughter's purchases? Because I know how many she's bought.
Yeah.
So
How many
not going to be
has she
as
bought?
aggressive, but I'm thinking probably more like 380,000.
300. How many guesses we're going to give, Ben?
I think we should give the student.
All right. Any student want to throw out a number there? It's between those two.
500.
500! We have, yeah.
You have to.
Crumblers wear pink. So we have sold, we just pulled up our stats because we can see that too. We have sold almost 500,000 cookies since we opened in mid-December, which is really exciting. And then one other question, how many people, how many crew members do you think we need for a week to run our store? Any idea?
25?
25? Nope, not quite.
A little more.
45?
45? That's close. So about 50. We need about 50 crew members to keep our store running and make all the cookies. So, okay. And I am always looking for really good crew members, particularly people who can multitask, who are good at assessing a situation and thinking, here's what we need to do, and leading people in that. So, thank you.
That was a great lead into what I was going to say, is that one of the best ways to learn about business is to work for a business, and especially a franchise, because franchise businesses tend to have a lot of things much more figured out than other kind of mom and pop businesses. So whether you want to own a franchise or own your own business or start your own business, working for a franchise company is a great place, whether it's for a franchisee or for the franchise corporate office. Franchising by and far has the best training for young people across the United States, and it's so, it's not really talked about. When you look at business magazines and listen to business podcasts, a lot of them are, they focus on companies, the unicorn companies. So like the Facebooks of the world and, Elon Musk and all of these types of people, which is great. It's very inspirational, but the vast majority of business owners are small business owners like these guys or like myself, that can, own, it technically is a small business, but you can become very, very wealthy over time. So, curious, thank you guys for the introductions of your brands and your backgrounds. Curious, I think you each covered how you got into franchising fairly well. I'd love to hear a little bit more kind of detail about the, what the typical day looks like in your life. And Eric, why don't we start with you?
Well, my wife's still here. Oh. Well, I also have 4 children, a few teenagers, and then my youngest is 7 years old, who is here. Typical day, I bought my business just to work Monday through Friday. I had no interest in working. Family is my why. But a normal day is, usually wake up at 7, 8. I like to sleep in. Check in with the office, but my normal day is pretty much 8 to 5. I try to leave work at work because I've had those jobs where you work, as they say, as a self-employed person, you work half days. You can pick which 12 hours you want to work. That's not what I wanted to do. So I do try and stick with regular business hours, Monday through Friday. Unfortunately, when you start up, it's a very different story. You gotta get to that point where you are successful. And so I'd say normally for us, it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is my go-to. I'd rather go get cookies and sandwiches at 10 o'clock at night.
And during those times, what are you actually doing as the business owner?
Well, something that I'm proud of is I've always built teams. I've always been there to help people, train and develop people. So my job is really all day long is training and development. It's always putting out fires. There's always something that needs to be taken care of. And I just got back from a convention where my wife said, "You're taking the time management class," because I can squirrel away into any problem. It's like, oh boy, this happened and that happened. But for the most part, I do run through the basics of what we got, make sure that the jobs are going the way they need to be going. If there's any help that's needed, I can answer any questions that people might have. And then it's really a matter of looking into the basics. You got to know your expenses, you got to know your costs. It is a business, and in all sincerity, if you aren't making money, you're just wasting time. So we do look over our numbers and make sure that things are, charged appropriately. Make sure that expenses are taken care of. And I will agree, my wife is my financial, so she helps me with a lot of the paying of the bills. That's not in my lap. I focus strictly on operations, client satisfaction, trying to build a brand that people will want to come back is what our ultimate goal is. It's that repeat customer, to get them to come back and use the service again and again and again.
Great, great. And how many employees or contractors do you
So
have?
right now I have 7 technicians on the road, and we have 2 individuals working in our office, and then that doesn't include my children. So we've got 3 of them who have made an attempt at working for us, but we do have 1 fully remote. Yep. 1 full remote employee, which was different, but when COVID happened, the world changed, everything changed. So we have 1 individual that works from their residence in Lowell, Mass. But they answer the phone as if they were sitting in our Dover office.
Cool, cool. Anna, how about you? You're just sitting in the back of the kitchen baking cookies all day long?
I just eat cookies all day. No, mine's a little more intense. And I think that because of food service, I think that's kind of the nature of it, where we have, like my day, I get up at 6 with my kids and I check what's going on in the store. We have people come in at 6 to start working. We also use a messaging app called Slack, which is really great because anyone can reach me at any time and I can communicate with different members of my team at any time. So if there are any issues at 6, they'll message me and I'll check that. I go in after I drop my little one off at school and then I'm there. Just, it depends on what they need. We've had a couple of people call out this week who are sick and have COVID, so I was mixing cookies all day. But normally I'm doing inventory, I'm scheduling, I am checking to make sure that people know what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to mix cookies. I'm checking quality to make sure that we have really high quality, and I'm correcting crew members. And Ben likes to say that Ben and I, we're not in it to make cookies, we're in it to help coach and build people. And so we are trying to coach and get a leadership team where they are the kind of the buffer between me and the store. So I don't have to go in all the time. And, we're working on that. It's constantly a challenge because you're working with people and people get sick and they have things that come up. And, we've had a bunch of UNH students who have come and worked for us and they're fantastic, but then they graduate and they have other plans. So they move on and they're not still with us. So then we have to replace them and retrain. And so that's a challenge, but it's also really fun because we get to meet people and get to know them, and we have just a fantastic crew. So I love being there and I love interacting with them. I love interacting with the customers. We have very few people who come in and they're angry. Most people come in and they're super excited to get a cookie. And if we have problems where we messed up, it's pretty easy to make it right. Like, we will give you better cookies, we will fix it. And so that's kind of what it looks like for me. I am pretty busy, but the goal is to eventually have a buffer where I'm not always there, where we have other people, assistant managers who create that buffer.
And you said weekends you're open 8 to midnight?
We are open 8 to midnight, Friday and Saturday.
And you're not in the store that whole time?
No, I am not. There are some times where I end up going in at 6, Ben and I, because we'll just go crank out some dough to help our crew get ahead. But we're at the point where we're not generally pitching in that way. It's more that I'm in the store during the day while my kids are at school to make sure things are running smoothly.
Matt, how about your day in the life?
Well, it's as Anna said, it's definitely a people business. It really depends on the day, but it can be, air traffic controller some days. It really depends. We're trying to scale the business right now. So we've done 4 stores in 15 months. So
and how many employees do you have?
I've got about 100 now.
across 4 stores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not enough. So I'll take this opportunity to say that I am hiring. We pay really well. You get free food, and there are career opportunities. In fact, we've got a couple of UNH students now, but we hired a kid that was on the ski team. He lives over on the seacoast, and he's a friend of a friend, and he's in Bali right now for a unpaid internship. He's a big surfer. But he's going to come back and sort of be our director of marketing when he comes back. So as we scale, he'll do some things. Like I guess it was 2 weeks ago, I met with all the UNH coaches, showed up with a couple catering boxes, and we did homecoming. And today I did a pretty significant deal with the basketball team to do their home and away games, and the visiting teams will reach out to us as well. So things like that. We're growing the business. Marketing's a big piece of it, but right now we just opened Portsmouth 3 weeks ago today, and as I look at the schedule, I know what our bread counts are and where they need people. So I've been working lunch, probably 4 days a week, and that's like 11 to 2. And I feel like they'd be hurting without me. So I'm happy to be there, but I'll segue out, and then I'll just work on other things. And, I was talking to Anna and Ben about their new spot in Rochester. So, we're looking for our next development agreement, but it really depends on, sometimes we run our labor high. Before with the split for Portsmouth, we had a bunch of people in Exeter, and my manager was like, this is great. I've got, so many people, but our labor was higher. And then, we took about 10 really well-trained people to Portsmouth, and then both Exeter and Portsmouth were slightly understaffed. So we're constantly hiring. It has not been the ideal time over the last couple of years to open restaurants with the COVID and the labor challenge, but I think we'll be better off for it. At least that's what I'm telling myself. But I'm up pretty early, and I'm a little league coach, and I go to all my kids' games. I'm a dad of 2 kids, 12 and 10, but I can do a better job putting my phone down, I'm sure. So.
Well, I love that you talked about the community stuff that Jersey Mike's does nationally, giving back and all that. And I know a lot of franchise organizations do that. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is how much small businesses are connected to their community. I'm sure all of you do tons and tons of things. I have a good friend that owns Dunkin' Donuts in Kittery. Susan knows him as well. Every day there's some, whether it's Little League or whether it's the teachers that need something, or he's giving away free food every day. And that's just what you do as a business owner. It's, yes, it's promotional and hopefully the brand carries on, but you got to give back to your local community. Another client that we work with, Kona Ice, that I don't know if anybody familiar with Kona Ice. They do shaved ice trucks. They raise money for schools and education, and they've raised, I think, over $60 million nationwide with all their franchisees. So it's pretty interesting to see what small business can do to give back to the local community. I want to remind you guys that this is going to be an interactive session. So any immediate questions popping up right now from anybody? All right, think about it. Oh, we got one here.
I always wondered with a franchise if it was very controlling feeling, or you want the support and stuff, but can you innovate a little bit on your own, or is it like Big Brother over there saying yeah?
Yeah. Great question. I'll have the experts answer that one. Anna, why don't we start with you?
No, we don't innovate. Part of the success of Crumble is that you walk into a Crumble in California and you walk into ours in New Hampshire, and you have the same feeling, right? And that you're going to have the same recipe. It's the same cookies across the country that you're going to get. And so, no, we can't innovate. We don't have any wiggle room at all, which can be annoying sometimes, right? But also we know that this is how we're going to be successful. So going into it, we knew that with a franchise, this is what we were going to get. And, you know, someday we would love to start our own business, but right now this is us learning how to do a business, and we follow the rules because that's how we're going to be successful.
Eric, how about in your system?
So it's franchise. I signed a document. I tell people all the time that I agreed to the rules that you set forth in your business model, and it really is. It's the reason that model has been successful. So I agreed to do certain things. I will say that my parent company is very open. So both of you talked about it. They want to listen. So I've answered 4 of your surveys. My parent company actually wants to solicit feedback from the owners saying, hey, what do you think about this and that? So they're always innovating. They're always trying to stay ahead. So they're doing their job. I have to do my job. So yeah, it's certainly controlled on what you can and can't do, but you can always give your opinion. And that's the one thing, is we just want to be heard. We have our latest development coming. We're changing our van wraps, and it's very expensive to wrap a van. Unfortunately, the majority of the owners said we don't care for the wrap that's presented. And as a franchise, sometimes people say, well, you know, I'm sorry, but this is your only option. Well, they actually heard us out, and they actually revamped it amongst the 18 brands that I work with, and they gave us a second option. So we were very happy that they at least listened to the feedback that we had.
Matt, what's been your experience?
We don't really deviate. You know, I think you know, an Italian sandwich is an Italian sandwich, but you know, we make our bread every day. We slice onions, lettuce, tomato. We can get our produce from a local produce company. We could go through Cisco if we choose, but it has to be the same size tomatoes, white onions, iceberg lettuce. I can't go romaine or spinach or something like that. So we don't deviate. You know, there's a lot of collaboration amongst franchisees with respect to, you know, maybe where we get our aprons or our towels. You don't have to use, you know, Cintas or Ecolab. There's other options. You could use somebody local, but our menu's our menu. You know, we have to buy the package, the equipment package. You know, the slicers are Berserba slicers, and we really can't deviate from that. And I'm not sure I'd choose to. I'm not a rule guy per se, but I to Eric's point, I signed up because I saw value. They've been doing it really well at a high level, and that's what I tell my team. They're like, well, why don't we do it this way? And you know, that's I love when that happens, because I said, well, because I paid a lot of money to have it done this way, and that's how it's been done for a long time. So that's the way we're going to do it. But no, again, I think we got into franchise because we wanted somebody to tell us this is the recipe and it works, and you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, in our research, I mean that, you know, and you said your organization is listening, obviously, and sounds like many of your organizations are, and I think that franchisor-franchisee relationship is important. And you know, historically in franchising, I mean, going back to McDonald's, has everybody heard of McDonald's here? You know, the franchisees came up with the Egg McMuffin, and you know, a lot of product development and a lot of ideas trickle up from franchise owners. So it's not like, you know, this is the way we do it, and you know, you can't, you know, do it your way at all. But the reason franchising is successful is because of that standardization. So that, you know, when you walk into a Crumble here or a Crumble on the West Coast, it's the same experience. I have a good friend that had a car wash franchise, and she was actually on the franchisor side. Her family owned the business, and her role was going out and visiting and inspecting existing franchise locations. And so she went to, I forget, I think it was in Michigan, one of their car wash franchisees, who she found out was selling bait because he was located next to a lake. And he was selling bait and keeping the bait fish in the water tank that was actually used to wash cars. So, she had to have a very delicate conversation with that franchisee as to why that wasn't, part of their business model, and, he had to stop selling bait. But yeah, it's an interesting. Thank you for that question. I think the smaller franchises, like startup franchise brands that have 10, 15, 20 franchisees, certainly are going to be a lot more flexible as far as. When you join an organization like that, you're going to be kind of a guinea pig as they figure out what the business is really about. But once a business gets to several hundred or 1,000 plus locations, they've pretty much figured it out, and you just kind of follow the success path that other franchisees have
Eric,
come up with.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So I think it's just really important to do your research, because not all franchises are going to listen to their franchisees, right? And also, Crumble is very new. It's only 5 years old, so they are still working out some of those kinks. So if it's a new franchise, you're like, this is the next hottest thing, maybe it is, but if you're the guinea pig, you might be in for some bumps. So it's just really important to know what you're getting into, talk to other franchisees. Ben and I did quite a bit of research before, and we did talk to other people who owned Crumbles because we wanted to know exactly what we were getting into. So I think that's just important to call out.
Yeah, no, it's a good point to do your homework. And if you guys are thinking about starting your own franchise company someday too, think about it from the franchisee's perspective as far as what their ideas may be. It's interesting as franchise organizations grow. You figure the founders of Jersey Mike's, for instance, in the early days, they were running the sub shop, and now they're corporate with thousands of locations and hundreds of franchisees. They lose that connection to the front line, so to speak. And so they really rely on franchise owners to kind of give them that feedback as to what's working, what's not working. And there's things like franchise advisory councils within large organizations to help bring franchisee leadership into corporate to, again, give them that feedback. I'm curious, business ownership is hard. I think the statistic is 97% of U.S. Citizens dream of owning their own business, and it's about 8 or 9% that actually do at any one point. And probably 8 of the 9 that do would sell it in a heartbeat if they could. I'm just curious, can you talk about some of those things that you may not have expected about business ownership that you struggle with, maybe mistakes that you've made, any kind of enlightening, kind of dark side stuff that you want to talk about? Eric, you want to lead us off?
Oh boy. Mistakes, yeah. Well, you live your life, you're going to make mistakes. And it's, to me, a matter of learning, from the mistakes that you make. But nothing catastrophic, I can say. It's just that a lot of people that are entrepreneurs tend to be pretty strong-willed. We think we know everything. I will tell you right now, I don't know everything. I still think I know everything, but I don't. I've learned that much.
Is your wife still in the room?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, if she would just...
I have a lot to say.
Yeah. So I have a great business partner, and we can agree to disagree. So I've made many decisions. I have to seek advice that were wrong, and I will say it out loud that I have made bad decisions with regards to some marketing, where you spend marketing dollars. People want to know, what does it cost for me to drop a pamphlet that we've left on some of the tables, for me to send that out to houses. I mean, you're talking significant amounts of money. I mean, depending on how large the market is you're sending, you can make a mistake of 5 or 10, or we can go up from there, $1,000 to simply send a flyer out that might happen to say $25 for 2 hours of service, and $50 for 4 hours of service, or $100 for, it was supposed to say off. So boy, we got a lot of calls of people that my print company actually left the word off. It was a coupon. So they wanted the $12.50 an hour handyman to come out and repair their stuff. I'm like, boy, we pay our handyman a lot more than that. So to get that out of circulation as quickly as possible was probably the biggest mistake that I've made. And I went back and double checked. I did my homework. Everything that was checked along the way was correct. Unfortunately, it was the printing company made a mistake on their end. They fortunately owned it, stating anything that we had. So, but boy, did I sweat some bullets on that one. I'm like, I'm going to go bankrupt if I have to honor that number of thousands that went out. So,
But you got a lot of phone calls.
yeah. Yes.
That was positive. Anna, how about you? Any big ahas? Or
Well, like Eric said, we make mistakes all the time. Today I realized I didn't order something for next week's cookies, so I have to pay 2-day shipping in order to get it here. But I think probably the biggest thing that stands out in my mind right now is that we try to pass over like the responsibility of day-to-day running of our store too early to people who weren't ready. And they thought they were ready and they wanted it. But Ben and I went on an anniversary trip, and we just watched while the worst week of our store ever being open. We just watched from 6,000 miles away. And that was hard. And then when we came back, we're like, this isn't working and we're going to clean house. And that was a little too abrupt too. And so I think just as the owners, no one's going to care about your business as much as you care about it. And I could spend as much time in that store as I have waking hours or non-waking hours. It will suck out as much time as I'm willing to give. And I think any business that you have, it's the same way. You have to figure out boundaries and what you're willing to give and what you're willing to do. And you have to be able to communicate to your employees, to your staff, your expectations, and very clearly set up benchmarks and coach them and train them and slowly give them responsibility. You can't just assume they're ready for it, even though they say they are and they think they are. Like it's a very interesting line to walk, and we are still learning that. And so that's been interesting. We're still figuring that out, and we've made some pretty big mistakes along the way, but that's okay. We're learning.
And you share that back with your other franchisees so they don't make the same mistake, right?
We do. And we actually, when we got back from our trip, I called another franchise owner, and she's had Crumbles for years. And I said, how do you do this and not be sucked in all the time? And she just gave me tons of ideas. And so I think that's another thing is leverage other people, other resources. Ask them what they do, ask them what they did wrong so you can learn from their experience so you don't make those same mistakes. You'll make your own, but at least you won't make those same mistakes.
Matt, how about you? Any mistakes?
Yeah, well, sure. Nothing catastrophic, but this is a people business. When you've got as many employees, roughly 25 a store, there's a lot of personalities to manage. So you sort of need to, we've got really good managers, and we put a lot of focus on, our expectations with them to disseminate down to the team. But call outs are, I didn't miss school as a kid, you know what I mean? And it's like, if the sun's out, the call in the summer, call outs happen. And it's, it's a fine line, because some days you just want a clean house and be like, I can't have this, but so we're doing our best with that. I think we're getting a lot better. I don't know if Anna or Eric mentioned it, but nobody cares about the business like we do. So I try and stay off the cameras. It's not a good use of my time. And I don't see anything bad, stealing or anything like that, but I like the customers have a great experience, but little things. Just this week we had a workers' comp claim. Kid cut his finger and had to go get stitches, and I put the claim in because I'm sort of the one-man band. I don't have an HR department or anything yet. Put the claim in, which, it's a half hour of time that I really don't have to do, but did it. I get hit 2 weeks later, or I got the citation. I had a because I didn't put the claim in, or when the accident happened, you're supposed to notify before you put the claim in that it happened. So I got hit with like $100 fee. So sort of a mistake. It won't happen again. Right. But you learn as you go, and you sort of pick your battles. But yeah, we're certainly drinking from a fire hose. Again, corporate support is outstanding, but they can't teach you everything about employees and customers, and sort of need to cut your teeth on some of that. But it's there's a big misconception, I will say, that franchise is a great platform, but it's, to use the cookie analogy, not just add water and it. We make great subs, but you need to set high expectations for your team and really stay on them, and whether that's inner competitions between stores, or you've got to get them engaged with a lot of different things that happen. Getting them involved with the profit and loss statement is kind of cool for those assistant managers and shift leaders, so they know, like, hey, if it's slow and you've got 6 people on and you only need 4, you can ask people if they'd like to go home. That really never happens to us. We need more people, but stuff like that, it's educating them. So we're still learning. I think I'll be learning for a while, and that to me is part of the fun of it.
I was going to just add, again, my business sells a customer experience. So when you go in, I think there's another franchise out there called Chick-fil-A that if the line's too long, they're going out handing, free things out. I've never been to a Chick-fil-A except for an airport, so no one handed me anything free, but really it was more about the experience. You bought into a brand, and it's important, and you want to represent your brand. So for myself, I wear my uniform with pride. I'm a very proud owner. And if I don't do my job and I do damage to another one of the owner's brands, or some that's in the family, the neighborly brand, that reflects poorly on me, and I wouldn't want someone else to do that. So for me, it's really important to make sure that the product that we deliver is consistent. We understand that we won't satisfy everybody each and every time, but it's not for lack of effort. I try to tell people all my problems that I have are based on one thing. It's a big, long word that begins with a C and it ends with an N. It's all about communication, and it's probably the hardest job that we all have. Someone's usually not listening, they're not paying attention, or they're not asking the right questions. For myself, it is a lot of work, and you have to be serious about what you're doing and have a group of people that are trained and developed to help you achieve those goals. And when the time is right, then you will be able to launch those people to oversee your businesses.
That customer experience thing is interesting because Eric mentioned that Neighborly is part of their corporate entity that owns multiple brands. Is it 25 brands now or something like that?
It's 20.
But they were previously called the Dwyer Group, and they had about 5 or 6 brands. And one of the first things that they did to really drive that customer experience is all their service people go to the home of their customers, and they put on little booties when they go into the house, which just said to the customer, most service people track mud and dirt into your house and aren't very well dressed in a nice uniform. And Dwyer Group was really one of the first companies in America to really change that, and continues to do that, I think. And that's, again, where the value of franchising comes in, with creating that unique customer experience and little tiny things, having your store always smell like fresh baked cookies, which is pretty hard not to, I guess. It matters a lot. So just wrapping up, and we'll let these guys actually interact with you and ask questions one-on-one too. But I'm curious, I think the number one thing, the taboo subject is always money. And so I know everybody in this room is thinking, wow, how much money do, business owners make or franchise owners make? And I'm not going to ask you to tell me how much money you made this year, but when you were looking at your franchise, how did you answer that ultimate question of like, okay, as an employee, I know what my salary is, I know what my life expenses are. Like, how am I going to make that or more in this business? So when you were looking at the various franchise opportunities, how did you answer that question? And why don't we start with Matt?
For me, it was a combination of economics. I was looking at P&Ls at a bunch of different brands.
Which is a profit and loss statement.
That's right. It's the financials, the business financials. So I was looking at, Domino's, Five Guys, Popeyes, Jersey Mike's, and I knew what the average unit volumes were and things like that. So economics played a role for sure. I knew that I didn't want to just do one. I think there's money in numbers, or I don't know if I said that right, but there's the more you scale, the more money you can make. I was in the business of taking people to multiple stores, and then for me it was culture and opportunity in New England. There's currently less than 100 stores in New England, and it's one of the best markets out of the country. And every Friday the business corporate comes out with a subtext, again, play on words. It's a newsletter to the franchisees. In 56, again, the brand started in 1956. Top line sales stores come out every Friday. It's one of the things in the subtext, and consistently there's about 10 in New England. So I was looking at the numbers and the opportunity right in our backyard, but those were the three factors for me. Was the economics for sure. I wanted something that I didn't have the stomach for, something that was Crumble's established, but like whatever, some guy that's got 10 that are doing really well, I didn't have the stomach for that. I needed something that was long in the tooth and had some scale. Right. And I was watching for a while. But certainly economics and culture and opportunity. I didn't want to move. I wasn't interested in buying 10 stores in North Dakota that I couldn't go in to make subs on a daily basis if they needed me. So those are my three factors.
Cool. And how about, you and Ben, how'd you approach that?
So, like I said, one of our partners, he's a part owner in some Crumbles, and we built a model. Crumble gave us some numbers and we plugged them in, and we said, okay, how much would we make if it's the worst case scenario, like in a year? And we just kind of looked at a couple of models, how much in rent, all of those things. And I said, okay, that's enough for us to put in this much money. Like, it will be successful enough that we can pay ourselves back within this amount of time. Us taking distributions, our partners taking distributions, that was important for us. And I mean, it was more before inflation and the cost of goods went up. That's definitely cut into our profits, and that's, I'm sure, a factor for you too. But for us,
you don't have lettuce. It's doubled in like the last
butter.
month.
Butter.
Butter. Okay.
So the other thing for us, Ben actually still has his day job. So he's helping on top of what he normally does for his full-time job. And we wanted our kids to be able to come and work and learn how to have a work ethic and be part of this business and be there doing the things we're doing. We wanted to give them those tools and to save money for college. And so that for us was also an investment. It wasn't just about what we would be making. It was also about the time we'd be doing it with our family.
Right. Eric, how about you?
Well, I will say that I wasn't in it just for the money. It's a big motivating factor, but I think everybody has a number in their head on what they can survive on and with. But I think I can say that in general, most of the income that you can make as an owner, there's certainly a percentage range. It depends on how much. So if you're scaling up to having 5-6 stores, but in general, I think, most, you're looking around the 20 to 25% profit range that most franchises are trying to get back to their franchisees. So having looked over the FDD, the financial disclosure document, which basically tells you everything about the brand that you're looking at, they give you the model that kind of tells you, how certain things are performing in certain areas, so you can have a good understanding as to how much you could. Keyword there is could make. Doesn't mean there's no guarantee. You can buy it and you can fail, and unfortunately, that has happened to a couple that I have known. And my franchise selects you whether or not they're willing to sell. I remember that day. I was hopeful, optimistic, and terrified. And I told my wife, I said, "Oh boy, we're gonna get this." She's like, wanted to whack me and says, "We got this." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Optimist, pessimist. So very different people. But it depends on how much you're doing, how much work, how much time, how much effort you put into it. I'd like to say that you can make as much as you want, and if it's not enough, then open another location, or 2 or 10, and then I think those opportunities certainly will grow. But there is definitely a percentage point that most of the businesses are operating from a profit standpoint. And of course, I'd like to say that everybody runs their business a little bit different. You can either A, be working in your business, which I'm told not to do, I'm guilty of it, but you work on your business. So you train and develop those people to do it. But as Matt said, sometimes you got to dive in and you got to help out. You got to get the ship from sinking and bring it up. And that's through the effort of dealing with all of the problems. But as you train and develop your staff, they're ultimately the ones that are going to make your business stay afloat.
Regardless of what you guys do, if you get into, you're running your own business or sales or whatever it is, if you've got to have grit if you want to be successful. If you don't have grit, then you won't really be as good as you can be. You really, if you want something, you better work at it, whether it's a business or you want to be good at sales or whatever, you want to get good grades, you better study. Same principles apply to running a business.
You can have whatever you want. If you're willing to work for it and just put in that time and that effort, even if you don't have the skill, if you're willing to put in the effort until you have that skill, you can do whatever you want.
So time, anybody have one pressing question? Anybody have one pressing question?
2 pressing questions.
So kind of like in the investment space, what I've seen online, I've seen people own like sometimes like a dozen or so like Subways, McDonald's, and it seems like they kind of just like sit back and sip daiquiris all day. So I guess my question is like how do you get to the point where you can own that many franchises, and how can you get them to basically run themselves where you can take that step back and just watch the money flow?
It's a great question. I know a guy that he immigrated to the United States. He was a dishwasher at a Burger King, and over about 30 years ended up owning over 150 restaurants. Worked his way up, obviously. I can tell you that he does not sit around and sip daiquiris or obviously you can scale. Matt can speak to this even at his scale, but you end up, there's a lot of franchisees in the United States that are actually, their organizations are bigger than the franchise brand that they're a part of. So they have hundreds, in some cases thousands of employees. And it's good to have those systems and processes and a team under you, but you're busy all the time. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I would. The bigger you are, the more money there is to pay people to do what you used to do, and that's nice, right? I'm sure the guy who you're referring to isn't doing workers' comp claims, right? I bet he's not sipping daiquiris all day either, but he's probably got enough people that there's a little bit of insulation where he could probably go golfing or whatever. But if he wants to be successful, he's working on his business. He's probably not making subs or flipping burgers every day, but his payroll is probably significant. And I'd venture to guess, again, for us, like to do a district manager, which is probably what I am right now. And I've been kind of studying this with my previous customers. You've got managers that run a store, and then depending on the brand, I think the right number is roughly between 5 and 7. So a district manager can oversee 5 to 7 stores, and that takes a load off the franchisee. But it depends. If they're high volume stores, maybe it's only 4 stores that they oversee. But again, the more money you make, the more you can pay that district manager. Might make, a couple $100,000, where a store manager might make, 60 to 100. I don't know, I'm making numbers up, but the bigger you are, I think the easier it becomes to sip daiquiris, so to speak. But
So for those of you who have other questions, I know the panelists are going to stick around for a little bit. I just want to give one little insight. For those of you that have an idea that might be franchisable. So several years ago, there's a Colsa student, Andy DeMeo, who started a business called Half Acre. It was an outsourced beekeeping business. He won Social Venture Innovation Challenge. He ended up being 3rd place in Holloway. And going into the Holloway competition, he needed to be more than this little, subset of a company that helped grow bees, help farmers. So Chris Rondo, who's the CEO of Planet Fitness, is a UNH alum, came and met with him twice for half an hour to talk about how he could take this little beehive outsourced business and what that would look like if he were to franchise it and be a franchisor, which is what Eric talked about. So just know that as you're thinking about your own ideas, or if you want to jump in, and we didn't get to talk about costs, that we can do that maybe later, but there is an opportunity to leverage UNH alums to help you think through what would that be like if my idea were franchise. So I just want to sort of bookend that on both ends, that you can do both ends of this. And I know a lot of you are working on some pretty cool ideas. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for amazing roundtable.